I have a fairly mellow Discord if you want to join us there for a bit of conversation and debate. We have people from all over, really, and for the most part, it's fairly good-natured and peaceful. As long as you come in that kind of spirit, you'll be fine. Hello, lovelies. Unfortunately, it seems that I was a little bit ahead of the curve when I did my previous video on artificial intelligence and art. So I think it's worth revisiting. I've got some advice, I think, for artists and writers that I'm going to put towards the end of the video to make sure that you watch the rest. Because, well, the algorithms are already influencing all our behaviour through advertising and making us game the algorithm to make things work better for us. So I will front load with my policy on AI as Postmortem Studios, and then I want to talk a little bit about more of the implications and arguments around AI, particularly with reference to the arts, and then I'm going to provide some advice, which you can take or leave, but there you go. So my policy is that I will continue to use human artists as much as possible. My budgets aren't likely to get much bigger, save for inflation, but maybe not till inflation calms down a bit again, which means, yeah, human created art is going to be fairly sparse still in my projects. I'll rely heavily on stock art and situations where I can get good art cheaper through one way or another. That's always been the way it's been, and I've always looked to help people out by giving them jobs when they need it. So that's not going to change. But I am likely to continue to use AI art alongside that, because often there are times when it comes to layout and you move things around and you suddenly need a new piece of spot art and you can't find anything that's just right, and you don't have time to go to an artist, commission, wait for it to come back and put it together because you're on a deadline. Yeah, self-imposed or not, you've got to get something out because you've got to make the money. And those are the kind of situations that I've found myself using AI art in recently, or trying to get something very particular that's hard to explain to someone, but much easier to produce in AI. So I've used AI art in the past, before all this blew up, to produce some character faces, NPC images, to put alongside the NPC sheets for people to look at. And on that project, AI was also very much in keeping with the setting, you know, that kind of unsettling area at the edge of technology. And so I wanted to use AI as a sort of meta-narrative element, you know, the slightly uncanny images, photorealistic images of people, that sometimes there was just something slightly off due to the way the AI did it. That was to me, that seemed like a sort of sly nod and wink to the setting, and something that reinforced the setting. So, you know, there it was appropriate, which is a case I think people need to think about. And most recently, I used it to produce some more NPC portraits in the style of 17th century painters, which would be ruinously expensive to get done in proper oil paints or anything by anyone. And would be very slow to get, and would be very hard to replicate the exact style. And all those artists are long dead, so they've not really got anything to complain about. Their arts have entered the public domain. So those have tended to be the circumstances in which I've used AI. My profession as a writer is also under threat by this kind of technology, like ChatGPT. It's already used to produce copy for websites, listicles. ChatGPT is scary good within certain parameters, and AI has been used to produce web text and advertising text, even blogs, from prompts for quite a while now, or at least an outline of them that a human can then go in and tidy up and add to. So I get it. I get the paranoia. I get the worry. I get the problems that artists see, but I don't think knee-jerk Ludditism or throwing your wooden shoes into the machinery is really going to do it. You've already lost. It's evolve or die time, basically. now. And so many of the arguments against AI are bad. It copies our art. Well, so does everyone, directly while learning as an inspiration until they find their own style. Many comic book artists first learned their craft by tracing images from comics, or their style began as derivative of someone else's until they refined and shifted it. So complaining about that when it comes to AI doesn't make any sense. Do we ban artists from copying each other, learning from each other, being inspired by each other, imitating each other's style? That's obviously untenable. And why is it different just because it's a machine doing it and producing a synthesis of many different styles and sources, just like people do? Oh, it's just piecing together other people's work. Okay, sure. But so does collage as an art form, and a lot more directly and recognisably than AI does. I mean, it's lifting actual elements of other people's work, photography, textiles, whatever else, and pasting it together, and that is recognised as art, transformative, different from what the original stuff was. It's soulless. Well, maybe, but what is a soul? Some of this AI art is already winning art competitions, so clearly it's good enough to fool judges, people who are experts on art, hopefully. This has been a wake-up call for me that there is nothing particularly special or unique or unreplicable about human creativity. We always thought, perhaps naively, that automation would come for the creative industries last. But it hasn't. It's come for us first in a lot of ways. And you can't stop systems from scraping art that you've put online, whatever the terms of service of the website say, whatever you say, and you'll have a very devil of a time proving whether an AI has or hasn't stolen from you when it's blended and incorporated into something else, in the same way that you've taken inspiration or used references in your own art. And where are we drawing the line here? If someone makes an AI base, roughly what they want, and then paints over it, corrects the details, fixes the hands, and refines it, is that now an AI or a human produced product? How many pixels do I need to change for it to no longer be AI art? Writing prompts is a skill in and of itself. How much is that worth? How much does that contribute to the creativity? When I send a brief to someone, am I not part of the process? And when I approve their sketches and so on, am I not part of the process there? And people can even run their own home versions of the software now on their own computers, not having to go to these systems that have been scraping and so on, and they can feed it with any art that they can save and put into it through their machine. You certainly can't stop that, and that's going to be even harder to prove that it's been ripped off from you. The economics isn't on your side. I can hypothetically pay $40 a month for as many print quality mid-journey images as I want and refine them and refine them and refine them until they're close to exactly what I want, or I can take a risk with hundreds of dollars with a new young artist who's desperate for the money and who I'm frankly already taking advantage of, and might not get what I want for one image for around $100 or more. The budget certainly isn't there in micropress businesses to indulge you or to be able to afford to pay what I would like to for art, or to hire the people I would like to for art, at least not without crowdfunding, successful crowdfunding. I mean, can you produce an A4 or A5 full colour piece of painted art in a couple of minutes the same way that AI can? No, you can't. And a lot of people can't afford to pay you or wait the amount of time that's necessary. This kind of thing, AI art, is going to make a lot more marginal productions more viable in a lot of ways. It's unfortunate, but that's the case. So really, I'm sorry, but the fight is already over, and not just for you artists, but for me as a writer and for more creative people as time goes on. Imagine AI applied to 3 dimensions, 3D printing. So what can we do? I think there are a few things we can do. I think it's going to be more and more important that we creative people develop a really strong voice and style in our writing, in our art. AI as a blend is necessarily going to be fairly generic, at least for the time being. And if we have a more recognizable style, personality, presentation that comes through in our art, it may cut down on the broadness of our audience, but it is going to make it harder to emulate us precisely. I mean, we just lost Kevin O'Neill, the comic book artist who illustrated Nemesis the Warlock, Martial Law, Metalzoic, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. His style was very strong, very harsh, very unconventional, not so easily copied. And the way that he did things violated many people's concepts of what comic art should look like. But it made him stand apart, and it gave him a unique place to occupy in comic books. Something like that. A strong writing voice like Cormac McCarthy, or a strong artistic style like Kevin O'Neill will be harder to emulate, be more characterful, more human, and will stand out. We can incorporate AI into our workflow. Artists like Jim Burns are already using AI in their workflow. They are using it to produce materials broadly in their own style via the prompts, and then refining it and working with it and through it, which speeds up the production of their own art and provides them a basis, a skeleton upon which to build the final piece. That can make things a lot more rapid, especially for digital artists, to produce pieces on contract to people, and even to lower their prices because it will speed up the amount of time it takes to produce something. Also, as a commissioner, it might be possible for me to use AI to produce something close to what I want, and then pay an artist a fee to refine and complete that work, to fix the hands and all the other things that need doing. So that might be a compromise position that we can work on if we all get more work and are able to produce more work as a result of this. I think all creative people also need to understand that soon we're all going to have to be boutique artists. AI is certainly going to take over design and the more generic side of things to a large extent, and we will have to rely increasingly on patronage and people being willing to pay a premium for imperfect human-produced material. Wabi-sabi, that whole Japanese concept of perfection and imperfection. Do you buy that hand-knitted sweater, or do you buy that machine-knitted sweater? Machines displaced weaving and knitting, but people still weave and knit as a craft, as a hobby. People still buy the more expensive versions that are hand-produced because we place a premium on that human interaction. Those of us who can afford it, of course. Photography became an art of its own. It didn't destroy painting. Prompting may become an art of its own and may not destroy the production of art. This genie isn't going back in the bottle, so we're going to have to adapt, and boycotting AI-produced material is just going to hurt people to no good purpose in the long run. We have to adapt. It's the only way forward, and this is only going to get worse as these things get better. So we all need to reassess the way in which we interact with technology and what we're willing to pay and the effort we're willing to go to for human-produced items everywhere in life. I mean, Etsy's a thing, right? Zang. "Rrrr," said the grinder as it chewed its way through Alice from the crown of her head all the way down to her toes. It ate the lot of her unfussy, snout to tail, and cleared its plate. It gnashed its way through her dress, her pinafore, her shoes, and her unmentionables. It chewed her hair, devoured her scalp, gobbled up her arms, wolfed down her legs, gorged itself on her torso, noshed on her skin, and gulped her down without so much as a burp to show for it.
Grim gave a big yawn and settled down to sleep. And of course, when Grim goes to sleep, all of his friends go to sleep too. The people on the internet were just text on a screen, the collectibles were just cheap plastic tat, and the books were just elaborate sandwiches made of wood and paper. Even Grim himself, once he was asleep, was just an old saggy goth twat, baggy and a bit loose at the seams, and nobody loved him.